Morning, everybody. Got kind of an interesting project going on here. I thought I'd show you guys. So this is a little bit of a new one for me. This machine is a pelletizer. So it is pelletizing stuff like this. And they've got, these are the rollers that force the material through that, I guess you'd call it a die. These are on eccentric, so the way that you adjust this thing so that those are rolling as close as they need to be to the die is you loosen up, there's two bolts that clamp that. You loosen them up and then you can rotate this thing, and it's kind of a cam action. So anyway, they broke off two of the bolts. The front one here, front one there, snapped off and are buried in there. There's one of the busted bolts right there. So they called me up to see if I could figure out a way to get them out of there. Now, obviously, if push comes to shove, this thing could get dismantled and that whole shaft assembly could get brought to my shop, and then we could set up on the boring mill and deal with it. But they'd much prefer to not have to do that. So what I have done, see if I can dig this out of here and show you a minute. I can grab my screwdriver. Is, in the interest of trying to stay lined up on it, I had a hunk of 3/4 inch 4140 pre-hard. And I put it in my lathe and drilled a hole through the middle of it. That's the diameter that I want to try and drill in this for a bolt extractor. So that way I can get in here and it acts as a guide bushing and keeps me lined up, centered up, and hopefully right down the middle of the bolt. Because no matter what we do going forward, having a hole dead nuts all the way through the center of the busted bolt's really a good spot to start. So anyway, check out this motor. I got to show you this. Look at this monster, would you? This is a 150 horsepower Allis-Chalmers electric motor. What a monster. Old school. So anyways, I'm going to get back at it, do some drilling. I don't really think I'm going to bother trying to video any of that. You know what drilling looks like, but mostly I thought you'd find the machinery itself intriguing. So I'll keep you posted on how she goes. All right, I thought I'd give you a little progress report. So my guide bushing arrangement went pretty good. I got drilled all the way through the bolt. And then I had originally intended to try and use an easy out on it. You know, one of these kind of outfits. But the problem I was running into is that was in there pretty deep. I was running it with a socket, but I was scared to really drive it in there, because those things can be a bear to get back out. And I was afraid if I either snapped it off in there or just straight up got it stuck, that I'd be screwed. So I came up with a new plan, and I took, because I'd get all the way through, I got him from this side with a 1/4 tap, tapped the hole I had just run through there, and then I cranked in a socket head cap screw. You can see from the damage on the threads that I only tapped it in about half the length of the screw, and then that hole was bigger than the proper tap drill size, and then just let this thing thread form itself in there. I did get it to break loose. The problem I'm running into now is the bolt broke off below the surface by about 3/16 of an inch. Sorry, I lost you there for a minute. Anyways, it screwed up the threads inside this casting, or whatever it is, forging, for the last little bit. So what happened is it turned about 1/4 turn, locked up, and I could rock it back and forth, but that was it. So then when I tried to force it coming out, the bolt would just back out. So I pulled the bolt back out, sprayed it all out, cleaned it up, and I'm going to put that bolt in now with some Loctite on it and see if we can get enough grip to where I can force this thing to go somewhere. And I think what I'm going to do, I don't know if you can see it here, but there's a little bit of the, let me see if I can get in here. Can't get it to focus. You see the threads at the end of the bolt showing up? I think what's going on when I try to come out the other way is there's enough junk in them threads it's locking up. So I've got it cranked clockwise as far as I can. I'm going to get my bolt back in, and I'm going to take my die grinder and start grinding those threads off the bolt as I turn it, and hopefully that'll relieve it and let me just back the thing out the bottom. But we'll see. That's the plan. All right. Well, we've got success and defeat all in the same package here. So the one that was up on top, we got that fished out of there. That trick worked where we drilled through it, tapped it, cranked a socket head cap screw in, kept working it back and forth, and finally got her to crank on out of there, and then ran a tap in the hole, cleaned it up, got a bolt back in it. This one is a whole different ball game. I got it moving, did the same basic thing to it, and then all of a sudden it was locking up, acting crazy, and Come to find out, that thing has been helicoiled, and the helicoil was mangled up and up out of its groove, so that it was basically locking that thing in from each end. You can see I finally got in here, got a hold of this, broke this chunk out of there, but there's just absolutely no getting that thing out of there. The helicoil is messed up on both sides to such an extent that it's curling over the edges of the threads, and it just locks you right up. It's like trying to run up a wedge, and even if you could force it, you'd be destroying the threads. The helicoil goes in. So at this point, I've concluded, by the way, I did try drilling it out a little bit more, but it's just not going good. It needs to come out. It needs to go on the boring mill. I'm not sure what that involves. That shaft it's on comes back into here somewhere. I'm going to tell them to take it apart and bring me a shaft with this hub on it, and we'll figure out how to get her set up on the mill where I can really do a good job, and probably just chase through there with a carbide end mill and cut the bolt right out of there until it turns into its own little helicoil, wind it out of the hole, take the helicoil out, and then I want to see, that really shouldn't have been helicoiled, it's just a bolt that gets taken in and out a lot. I want to see if we can get one of those, forget what they call them, but the solid type of thread repair inserts, not the helicoil style. So anyways, so like I say, I was pretty proud of myself, got the first one out, second one is a big no bueno. So anyways, I'll catch you guys next time. That's the way the cookie crumbles.